Hello, everybody out there in crypto land. How are you doing today? I'm going to do a video about Bitcoin and Ethereum, so thanks for tuning in. The reason I'm doing this video is because they're both really perching near high levels, and they appear that they want to break out. I'm not sure if it's going to happen now. The volume hasn't really started to kick in yet. I'm looking for some to kick in, but it hasn't happened as of yet. And I'm going to walk you through these charts and what I'm seeing. So number one, you understand why I'm doing the video, and number two, so you can start to see what I'm looking at when I'm looking at these charts. I also want to address something else. I've been looking at some other videos, and I notice people that throw a lot of indicators on their charts. They use relative strength. I haven't seen too many MACDs, MACDs. I see some people throwing up some Fibonacci's. I've seen some Bollinger Bands. I've seen all kinds of indicators, and I'm pretty well versed in indicators in the stock market. I've been trading for over 15 years, and I do have to say over time I've let my charts get extremely simple, and I think it's for a good reason. When you have a lot of indicators on your screen, it can really clutter things up. It can really make things messy. Now, people that have 4 indicators, Bollinger Bands, multiple moving averages, it just gets very cluttered for me, and you're never going to see all of those signals line up. There's always going to be a conflict. So if you're new to trading, I really suggest you try to keep things simple. Maybe look at Bollinger Bands, see if those work for you, see if that makes sense to you. Take some time looking at different moving averages. Take some time looking at RSI. Take some time looking at MACD. You can try these different indicators because everyone trades differently. Not everyone's going to trade how I trade with pretty much naked charts. But I just want to explain my methodology and why this works for me. Alright, so this is what I'm looking at. So I pretty much look at price and volume action. I try to anticipate demand, and I try to notice when supply is being dumped on, when there's I guess what I'm trying to say is I try to look for selling and I try to look for buying, right? Because that's all the market is. It's selling and it's buying. It's accumulation of a position and it's distribution of shares. So what I'm looking at and noticing in Bitcoin is this. So I've drawn out this cup with handle in my last video. I think I mentioned it a couple other videos ago. We had this handle forming. We had this nice shakeout late last night, about 24 hours ago, and it's since broken out of this handle pattern right here. I want to zoom in so you can see this volume. While the volume isn't tremendous, it is a little bit higher. If you notice, since we've gone through this handle period, the volume is actually quieted out. This line here, so this is an indicator that I use, but this is basically a 20 average volume over 20 bars. So 20 bar volume average. And now the 20 isn't a magic number. You can make it 50, you can make it 10. Doesn't matter, but you need to understand what the trend of the volume is, and the volume trend here is down, as you can see. So we have this 7 or 8 day period right here with really, really low volume, and you notice the price is just kind of floating around. It pops up, it came to form the top line of this channel of the handle, and then it dropped down, and then we're just kind of, notice we're living in this range these 4 days. So if you're not familiar with candlesticks, on a green candle, the bottom bar is the open, the bottom line is the open, the top line is the close, and we have these wicks. This indicates the range above the close, and this indicates the range below the open. Okay, so we have these long wicks, but they keep coming back to this consolidation area. You could even, so 1, 2, I'll include this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 very tight candles in a row on very low volume. That indicates an extreme lack of selling, also indecision in any direction. So it pretty much says whatever trend comes up is going to prevail. And what happened is we had a little bit of a sell-off here, and we had this large shakeout, which ended up being a shakeout. And what a shakeout is a large price movement in one direction or another, trying to relieve people of their shares. Okay, it's trying to scare the crap out of you, so you're like, holy crap, Bitcoin's falling apart, I'm getting out of this thing, it undercut this low over here, I'm done. And you sell here at what, 42.36, it drops down to 41.70, you're like, man, I'm glad I did that, and you leave and go to bed, and then an hour later too, it pops right back up. So that's what a shakeout is, and this probably shook out quite a few people. You see the volume here. It's very significant, especially in terms of this handle. So sometimes you have a handle and a cup with handle with a shakeout, and a shakeout is really good for a cup with handle pattern, because what it does is it makes people that got shaken out scared they're going to miss out on the move, and they're going to end up buying once this thing breaks out of all-time highs up here at 44.40 or so. And so that's kind of what we're seeing here. We're seeing initial volume. Notice it's increasing on this upward volume movement. Notice we don't have these wicks anymore. Okay, so the price is going from low to high, from low to high. Okay, and now here it happened again, right? Opened here, came down here, and now we're sitting near the top of this, we're in a 4-hour chart, so we're sitting on the top of this 4-hour range with 34 minutes remaining. So odds are this is going to close towards the high. Now what's the next bar going to look like? I have no idea. Your guess is as good as mine. But when you're looking at these charts, the only thing that we can do as traders is read the right side of the chart. We can analyze the left side all we want, but you need to be able to analyze the right side of the chart and notice if there's a volume pattern and a price action pattern indicating purchasing or indicating distribution, you know, accumulation, distribution, buying or selling. You need to know what the market is doing right now. And Bitcoin right now looks like it's trending up and looks like it's poising itself to break out. It doesn't have the volume signature yet. Ideally, what would happen is this 4-hour bar closes, and I can't explain why this happens, but they seem to move these things like on hours. So whether it be on Chinese Open, on Japanese Open, on the US Open, you know, the morning, 8 or 9 o'clock, depending on your time zone. But they tend to move on the hours. It's kind of interesting. So even if you go down to the 15-minute chart, sometimes you'll see a 15-minute bar end, and then the next one just boom shoots up. And you can see that because if you go into the 1-minute chart or the 5-minute chart, you can literally see at the beginning of these hours, things just really tend to run. I don't know if that's computer generated or if that's just a guy clocking in for the day. I've got no idea. But anyways, these things tend to move, so you'll see a bar just explode. And I've seen that happen at the beginning of the hours time and time again. It's very interesting. So ideally, this would open, we'd get lots of volume, and it would push and continue higher. I'm not saying that's going to happen in the next 4-hour block. All I'm saying is that with this upward movement, with this higher purchasing volume here after a low volume period, combined with this really nice shakeout, really indicates that this thing is going up. You know, also this bar here in candlestick terms is called a hammer. A hammer is, you know, looks like a hammer, right? You've got a handle and a head, and the head's supposed to beat the crap out of a nail. Well, a hammer indicates that this thing's going to go higher. Okay, so here's another hammer. Here's a hammer. Here's a hammer. That's the opposite of a hammer. I forget the term for that if there is one. But anyway, another thing that's really nice here is we have this nice curve up. Okay, this really nice curve up. You notice that? If we notice over here, there's no curve up. It's kind of flatlining. I mean, we know that it just goes sideways, but here we have a curve up. And you can, we see sideways here, and it pops up and comes right back down. We see this curve up, and it continues going. It's kind of like, I liken it to, boiling a frog in a pot of water. If you've heard that analogy, you can, if you put a frog into a boiling hot pot of water, it's going to jump right out. But if you let the frog sit in that same pot when the water's cold and slowly turn the temperature up on it, it's going to boil and be delicious. So that's kind of what this reminds me of when I see these little turns to the upside. It reminds me of that analogy, and it tends to be true. So that's what I'm seeing in Bitcoin here. We're sitting right next to these all-time highs. I mentioned it before. We have a cup handle, a cup pattern with a handle, and then we have this nice turn up coming out of here. This would have been a good buy point, 43.14. You've already been up $80. I don't even think that's percentage-wise. Let's see what that is. Sorry guys, I have to bend down and get my shift keys. It's only 1.8%, so it's not a big move in percentage points, but it's a small indicator of a larger potential move. And another thing with the volume, let's zoom out just a little bit. look at this volume. Look how low this average is. If you look at my cursor, those dotted lines, the average volume here is the lowest it's been on this entire chart. Now if I go back further, so it touches it right here. This is average. This is a low average volume. But if you notice, this is kind of curving down. It's not curving up, right? This is a downward. This is called a rounded top. So this is a selling signal. This is a rounded top. With low volume indicates lack of selling. So there's only a couple of points where it's actually reached this low type of a volume signature. And moves tend to happen, if you notice right there. I can't, you can't see me pointing, but I'm pointing at August 10th right here. I'm pointing right here. And if you notice at this low volume, it really, there was some acceleration. It happened to be to the downside, but there's some acceleration here. And the same down here. If you notice, there was some acceleration, and it was to the downside. But this was in a upward trend, which is actually, yeah, so curved up. But this should have had more volume. This was a breakout. If you notice, it came out, it broke out. It should have been with a lot of volume going into these high levels, and it was not, indicated by the low volume. So it broke down. I'm not anticipating this doing that because this is actually below all-time highs. When you're above all-time highs, you want to be in higher volume. But since we weren't that way, it broke down. I mean, the same could happen here. You never can tell, but anyway, that's what I'm seeing there. So I'm getting pretty technical. I just want you to understand and just go a little bit deeper into this analysis. Okay, so let's look at Ethereum. That's the other one we're going to look at. So Ethereum on a longer term basis is nearing its old highs. We're about, what, $50 away or so? 420. So we're about $60 away, $70 away, right? So here we have a long, kind of a cup with handle pattern. It kind of has a V shape to it, but I'll take what I can get. So let's draw this out. We have a cup with handle here. Okay, so far this is a cup. There's no handle. There's no guarantee we're going to get a handle. So ideally this would handle out like this, very similar to what Bitcoin did. They don't seem to move in tandem. So I can't say it's going to do that, but as it gets towards these old highs, it's either just going to break out, which is very similar to what IOTA did when it broke out from its, what was it, I think 60 cents. I'll look in that. I don't want to get into too many other charts, but yeah, 65 cents here. Notice it came up and formed this cup and just continued going. Didn't really handle. Had a little shakeout here, if you can see that. Went up, came down, and then proceeded to go right back up. That's not really a handle. That's a shakeout. So not sure if Ethereum is going to just break out or if it's going to consolidate and go sideways or drift down slightly and form some type of a handle. But either of those would be constructive and would be really nice. I'd love to see that. And so what I'm looking for here, I'm looking at the volume signature again. Volume on the right side of this base after this. Look at all of this volume down here. I mean, this is really big volume down here. I mean, obviously, right? The average volume is really high. We have these large volume peaks. And notice it's after this bottom. Look at that. So that bottom, this bottom, the very bottom day, if you were to buy that green bar, whichever exact day that is, I don't know, but if you were to buy that green bar, I mean, that's a fantastic bar. All this over here is just people buying and buying and buying and buying. I'm actually a little shocked there isn't more volume on this low, but it did explode to the upside. Did explode to the upside on volume to the right side of that low bar, and then it never looked back. So look at that, took right off. You could have taken this right here. I wish I did, actually. I was looking at it, but could have taken that right there and been completely happy and to be up, plenty of percentage points here. Looks like about 50%. Yeah, 54%. So that would have been a fantastic entry. That's your ideal entry. If you're ballsy enough to get in down here, man, good for you. Give me your cell phone number and text me your alerts because I will subscribe to that. So But that's a really hard call to make because it's hard to buy at bottoms. The people that buy at bottoms are the people with tons of money that know that they can buy down here and make a bottom. This bottom was made. Okay, this isn't by chance. This was developed by people recognizing opportunity and having the money to take advantage of it. Okay, that's what this is. Anyway, so what we're looking for up here, it's getting a little aggressive on the upside, which is great. Don't get me wrong, I'm not mad about that. But we have low volume. The volume's getting low again. Now, within this base, we see a few periods where the volume's been down this low on the averages, and it doesn't really tend to proceed crazy movement because we're in a base. In a base, the rules kind of change. When things are in an uptrend, you really pay more attention because, number one, you're probably having a position that's in play and you don't want to put your money at risk or have more risk than you need to. And when it's in a base like this, hopefully you've already exited your position somewhere and you're just kind of letting it, be a brat. Like if it's your kid, right? You want to let it cry for a few minutes before you go over there and try to fix everything. So now we're in the fixing stage and we want to see how it's behaving on the right side of the base. Is it behaving constructively? Is it not behaving constructively, or you're just confused by what you're seeing, or is it behaving rationally? So Ethereum is behaving very rationally. We see green pops of volume, green, 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 green. A couple pops of red over here. Can't be too mad about that. We have a little base formation right here. Not really a base. Well, I guess it's a base, but we have a base here. We have a base here. We don't have a base forming up here, but we do have kind of a retest. Come on, pull down. It's not pulling down. Okay, so we have a base here. We have a breakout. We have a retest of this trend line here, which it passed, and now is continuing with the uptrend. So eventually it's going to base at some point. I don't know exactly when that's going to be. If you notice that pretty much all of these bases start with a very large volume signature. If you look at this bar, here's a large volume signature. This large volume signature was in the middle of the run, didn't base there, and this large volume bar was close to the top of this run. So we're going to look for another largish volume bar, and then it's probably going to come down and base again before we get a bigger breakout in Ethereum. So long story short, sorry to chat your ears off, guys, but long story short, I'm looking for a base, preferably up really close to these highs. That would be awesome and ideal. It would prove to the people that really want to accumulate Ethereum that there's a market for it, that it doesn't want to sell off, because they're going to stop buying up here and see what it does. And that's the reason that a cup with handle pattern is what it is. The psychology behind it is you have a sell-off, an accumulation of shares at the bottom, okay, and then sellers are exhausted, so the shares drift up. You see some institutions get in with large volume, and then prior to all-time highs, it consolidates and tests those highs so the people that have their positions here feel a little more secure that it's not going to fail on them if they buy it into highs, because eventually those additional sellers from up here will exhaust themselves and buyers will prevail, and you'll kind of see what you see in Bitcoin, right, which is this nice little curl up thing that's happening. Come on. So anyway, right, so that's what we see here. You see some selling, you see accumulation at the bottom, people forming a bottom, you see people buying up here, you see selling exhaust itself. And there are some people that will take profits here, and that's what these people are doing, is taking profits. Selling exhausted itself, and now we're drifting higher. So that's the psychology and the meaning behind the cup with handle pattern. And even if you don't get the handle, even if you just see a cup, you can look for these volume signatures. You can look for these higher lows and higher highs. We haven't talked much about that, but it's fairly self-explanatory. And yeah, so that's kind of what I'm seeing here in Bitcoin and Ethereum. Very positive action. I don't think we're going to get a pullback in cryptos anytime soon. It looks like we're going to get a major breakout at some point in the next couple of weeks, maybe. Bitcoin probably sooner than Ethereum. Yeah, that's about it. So I'm not gonna drag this on too much further. Wow, 19 minutes already. You guys get me talking about this stuff, and I just keep going. So anyway, so that's Bitcoin, that's Ethereum. Please subscribe, please like, please ask me questions. Please pass this video along to your friends. I really appreciate it. I hope you like the content. Have a good one.